Good afternoon. Today we're going to talk about creating and connecting archives within Change Auditor. Now, to create and connect an archive in Change Auditor, there are two steps. The first step is to create the archive policy. So when going into Change Auditor main console, you would go to the administration tasks. When you go to the administration tasks, you will see a tab called Purge and Archive. Well, today we're going to create an archive policy. When creating the archive policy, I'm going to bring up an existing archive policy, but you would just click Add. You're always going to give the policy a job name. Then you're going to selectively choose how to process these events. Now, keep in mind, when creating an archive policy, the last thing you would want to do is have your archive policy not coincide with your purge policy. So you're going to create the archive policy first. When creating the archive policy, in this case, I chose to create an archive policy of 60 days. So I'm going to process any events that are older than 60 days. I would selectively choose archive events. When I click next, now it's going to ask me how often do I want to run this? Well, if I want to archive events every 60 days, I'm going to run this every other month. First day of the month, you selectively choose a run time. The batch limit is how many events will be processed in that archive. So once again, based upon the amount of events that you're generating, please have your archive policy work in conjunction with approximately the amount of events that you're running. You could run an archive policy daily, weekly. So once again, keep that in mind when selectively choosing how you want to run your archive policy. You would click Finish. Now, once you click Finish, what is happening at this time? Well, an archive database is being created. So when creating the archive policy, it's going to ask you what server and what instance you want to create this database against. Now, it's going to do this on the same database that Change Auditor is created. You would see the next run date for that archive policy. The database itself is going to look like this within the SQL Server. You would see an archive policy named for, or the database named for the year. We start them always in January. Now you can change that calendar year also during the creation of the archive policy. Now, how do you connect to that archive database? Well, within your Change Auditor console, you would click File and you would disconnect from that console. Once you disconnect, you would create a new connection. You would go to Manage. You would now go to Add a Connection. When you add a connection, you're going to create a database direct connection. You would click Next. You would point to that SQL Server and instance. In this case, it's going to enumerate all the databases on that server. I can see all of my databases. I can go to my Change Auditor archive database, click OK. Now you're creating that database connection, and you would have the ability to give that database connection a name. Here is your connection profile name. You would click Test, and now you would be connected to that profile. Now, how is that going to show up? Well, right now, I would see my 2025 archive that I have created. So when I would want to connect to it, yep, now I would see here is my change order default connection. That would be going into my live environment, or I can connect to my archive. When I connect to my archive, now you're going to see a real watered down version of it because it's designed only for seeing legacy data. So I'll go into my search field and we'll give it a second to connect. If I was looking at Active Directory events, I can simply go to all Active Directory events. And in this case, I'm looking at from a purge period, and you can save your reports inside of here. I would click Run, and now I'm going to see all of my change order events that have been archived that are over 60 days old. Once again, creating and connecting archives within change order. I want to thank you for your time today.